Originally Maharaj was born in Holland, in the Netherlands. He joined ISKCON in 1978 in Amsterdam. Didn't join in Amsterdam.
No.
This is, wow.
Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan?
Yes.
There we go. So you can see I've really researched this and I've got good facts here. From 1985 to 1990, Maharaj was in charge of the construction of Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi, which was a huge job.
In Mayapur.
In Mayapur.
Yes.
In the Pushpa Samadhi. So, and then in 1990 to 95, Maharaj was the temple president of Vrindavan Krishna Balaram temple. And in 1995, unfortunately, there was a murder attempt on Maharaj, which was quite controversial at the time. Maharaj then took sannyas from his guru, Jayadvaita Swami, and Kadamba Kanana Maharaja is one of the first few Diksha gurus within ISKCON that were not initiated by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj is also a member of the Vrindavan Executive Board, GBC, for the ISKCON Vrindavan, and has spent the 80s, some period of time in the 80s, back here in Melbourne, where we got to know, some of us here, the older devotees, got to know Maharaj very, very closely, and we've established a good friendship for many, many years. And even at that time, Maharaj was an exceptional devotee. So here come the questions. So Maharaj, what fond memories do you have of the early days here in Melbourne?
Early days here in Melbourne, huh? Well, I remember I was in India, and Bhavananda decided, he was the authority, he decided that I should go to America, to Detroit. And in the afternoon it had changed into Australia. And that was it, you know. So I was going to Australia, and how I had to ring up the temple president and ask him to pay the ticket. It was really hard to get him on the line. And finally I had him on the line, and then he said, "It's a bad line, I can't understand." And bang, put the horn down. I was like, It started good. Anyway, but then he sent the money for the ticket. And he sent plenty. So, you know, I had quite some money left after the tickets. Came here to Melbourne. We met him in the office upstairs. There was Balaram. And he says, he said, "You had a good trip, this, that." He said, yes. I said, "I have some money left from the tickets. I wanted to give it." He said, No, you keep it. You buy some clothes for your wife and for yourself. It was a grihasta at the time. And he said, "Go to Myers, you know, and go buy something." Expensive place, as you all know, right? We go to Myers, we think, wow, he's really generous. We're buying all the clothes. Next morning he calls me in the office again and says, "How are you going to pay your debt?"
That's typical Bell, right?
Why didn't you tell me yesterday? You know, I wouldn't have bought all the clothes, right?
Okay.
It took off from there, you know.
Yeah. How long were you here in Melbourne exactly?
Not so long. I was here to pay off the debt, right? And then what happened was that the Sankirtan leader was our Atmaram, who's now in Otford, and he was a stormtrooper, to say the least. Right? He was very, and since I was collecting to pay off a debt, he decided that he would give me a special area. So one morning, Gyana Samudra picked me up, dropped me off in the van, in a factory area, and I had to sell paintings. Okay. I was walking in the street and I saw this sign, "Blood and Bones, $20. And I was thinking, what in the world is this? You know, I just came fresh from Vrindavan a few days. I'm walking in the street, blood and bones. Because whose blood, whose bones? And then, right, it turned out that they were all slaughterhouses. Leverton. The best part of Melbourne. I got Leverton. And I walked into this place, and there were chickens everywhere, and they were being slaughtered, and I was selling paintings while the man was in action. Anyway, he bought $400 worth, and I wasn't sure if I would take the money or not. And then as I walked out, there was a chicken on the wrong side of the fence. And I told that chicken, "Run, chicken, run." He didn't take it. I tell you. So I had some good memories of Melbourne.
So Maharaj, everybody wants to know how you came to ISKCON. And what attracted you to come to ISKCON the first time, to become a Hare Krishna devotee?
Yeah. Well, I come from a Dutch business family, and they had some families, some businesses in the family, plus some family members were executives in big companies. So I grew up 20 kilometers outside of Amsterdam in sort of a director's town, which and everyone worked in Amsterdam but lived there in kind of a nice place. So it was a very sheltered environment, and my father was planning that I would be his successor. But there was one problem. My father was not a happy man, to say the least. He was highly stressed, he was highly depressed, he was outright miserable, and if I had to be his successor, I had serious doubts about it. So at one point I decided, nah, this is not for me. So when I was 17, then I decided, this is it. I'm not going to go this route. So I told my father the happy news that I was going to leave, and that I was going to go and travel and eventually go to India. So, well, he exploded. That's what fathers do when you act like that. And he basically, he screamed and he said, "If you don't do what I say, I won't give you a cent." And then I said, "That's all right. I don't need your money. I can make enough to get by myself, and I don't need so much, so I'll be okay." And then his anger changed into fear, because he had no grip on me. He could really see that he had totally no grip on me. Couldn't do anything. So then it was fixed. I was leaving, and I wrote a song on my guitar. "Going away is a part of my life, the life I got to live." And my mother slipped me some money on the side, as mothers do. And off I went on a journey to India. It took me slowly via Yugoslavia, Greece, and Turkey. It was all overland, so it was a gradual journey. In India, I had many different adventures, but which would be too long to describe. But one thing was, I came to the Ganges, and there I just studied all the activities that were going on around the Ganges. The pujas, the people bathing, the people coming late at night and putting like flower boats with a little light into the river. The people that would float by in wooden boats and sing religious songs, the temples and all the worship. And I really liked it. I just really liked that spiritual atmosphere. And there was this one temple where constantly the mantra Siridam Jairam Jai Jairam, Siridam Jairam Jai Jairam was playing. So I picked up the mantra there. And I've chanted that mantra for quite a number of years before I came to the Hare Krishna movement. Yeah.
But what was the actual point where you made contact with the devotees and said, "This is how I want to spend the rest of my life"?
Well, I mean, little by little India prepared me. I became more and more aware of Indian philosophy, and I went back to the Netherlands, and there was a friend of mine who was unusual, because he was very into nature. He worked in the forest and just in gardening. He would mostly sleep outside, which in the Netherlands is quite tough. And he would pick herbs from the forest, grow some vegetables in the garden, and he would cook for us every day. Serve us, wash the dishes, and just really like a servant. And that person, from one day to the next, disappeared into a Hare Krishna temple. So then, I went to visit him. So that was the first time I went to a Sunday feast, really. Really to see my old friend. And of course, the devotees all started preaching to me, and I was like, not too fast, ho, ho, ho. I was not one to just jump in. But I read books, I studied it carefully, and so by the time that I kind of came to the point and said, okay, I'll do this, I had been exposed quite extensively. I'd read the books for a number of years. I had spent time in India. So, in those days we say joined in 78 because I'd moved into the temple in 78, but actually it's more like I started to become a regular member of the congregation in 76. Right. And for 2 years I was sort of part of the temple, coming from time to time, reading, and so on. And always on the way to India again. So then what was the point where I moved in? The point where this friend, he told me, next time you go to India, you must go to Vrindavan. So I did that. Came to Mathura, arrived there, someone said, I asked someone, is it far? He said, no, not far. Can I walk? Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So it's 20 kilometers, so for us Westerners it's quite a walk. I walked the whole distance and I reached in the evening and there were no people on the road, only cows. It was like maybe 100 cows walking towards Vrindavan, and I went to Vrindavan. I arrived in Vrindavan together with the cows. So it was a special experience. It sort of came, and it was just time for the evening arti in the Krishna Balaram temple. Wow. I came there. So it just came the evening arti, the deities and everything. It was overwhelming. So then I decided, okay, this is not an ordinary place. This is definitely this place is spiritual. I could understand. And then I stayed in the temple and stayed there for some time, but I couldn't stay that long because my visa was running out for India and things like that. So eventually I had to go back. But on the way I got jaundice, heavy jaundice, and that's a story in itself.